Story 1. That thing when people have to wait longer than they want, so they get upset and start looking around, loudly saying to everyone else things like, "Can you believe this? This is absolutely ridiculous. How can they do this to us?" As if they are going to rally strangers in the waiting room to start a mini revolution for them. Please leave me out of your tantrum. Story 2. Ignoring their child while playing on their phone and then getting mad at the child for acting out of boredom while being ignored to entertain themselves with TikTok. Story 3. Play reels out loud, wearing heavy perfume, not offering front or easy access seats to elderly or disabled individuals, letting their children cough without covering their mouths. Story 4. I'm sorry, Martha. I know it's 2:17 and you are still waiting for your 2 o'clock appointment. Guess what? It is 2:17 and I am still waiting for my 1:45 appointment. It is an immediate moment for me to get my head out of my assumptions. They are behind, and everyone is suffering with you. Those kinds of people make it seem personal. Story 5. Spreads out and takes up the chairs on either side of them with all the items they have brought into the office. Story 6. Parents who expect their child to entertain themselves with nothing while the adult scrolls on their phone. As an adult, you are not sitting quietly with no entertainment, so why would you expect a child to do that? Then they get mad at the child for getting up and messing around because they are bored. At least bring a coloring book or play I Spy or something. Story 7. Allowing their child with hand, foot, and mouth disease to touch every surface in the waiting room, including doorknobs. Thank you for that. Story 8. When you are standing at the check-in desk speaking with the attendant, and someone literally comes up and starts speaking to the person because they are more important in their mind. Story 9. I was in terrible pain sitting in the emergency room waiting room. An older couple with a friend was also there. They were making loud judgments about why other patients were present. I got up to use the restroom and told them that making comments about why people are there on what could possibly be the worst day of their lives was inappropriate and rude. I returned from the restroom and they left shortly after. I can only assume that they were there for entertainment. Story 10. Writing this in a hospital waiting for my partner to get out of surgery. It is 6 a.m. and there is a woman on speakerphone pacing around, yelling at her children. I have never been more infuriated so quickly in my life. Story 11. Try to talk to me. I know this sounds messed up, but I am not a people person, and social interactions with strangers make me anxious. Story 12. I have hated everyone who has ever sat in a waiting room having a speakerphone or FaceTime conversation. Why does it happen so often? What is wrong with people? Story 13. Start talking to a friend loudly on speakerphone and throwing your bags all over other open seats. Story 14. Act abusively towards anyone, especially their children. Play loud media, especially cell phone games with repetitive high-pitched sounds. Sit very close and start coughing frequently in my direction. I wear a mask, and some people do this to be rude. Touch me. Story 15. Cough into your elbow and avoid touching anything immediately afterward. Otherwise, you might as well cough directly on what you are about to touch. This behavior is common not only in waiting rooms but everywhere. Story 16. Allowing their children to climb on everything and bother strangers while they loudly watch videos on their phones, paying no attention to their children. Story 17. Call attention to themselves in any manner. Talk too loudly, have audio on a phone, walk around, sigh, complain to other people waiting, or talk to me. Everyone should be doing their best to be completely silent. Story 18. Start engaging in superficial conversations with anyone as if it is social hour and intentionally distract everyone by doing so. Story 19. Call someone on speaker to complain about the support staff. Swear at the staff. Loudly complain about reasonable policies, such as needing to reschedule if you are an hour late. Story 20. My 3-year-old son guaranteed the man sitting across from us at a doctor's office hated us by asking me, "Why is that man so fat?" I don't know, son. Why are kids so difficult? Jesus Christ. Story 21. Cough without covering their mouth. I am probably not there for the exact same illness as you. Story 22. Sit close to me and make conversation. I do not know you, I do not want to talk to you, and do not touch me. Story 23. In particular, at accident and emergency, bringing every member of the family along. If you are near tea time, someone will inevitably do a McDonald's or fish and chips run and sit there stinking out the place. My local accident and emergency is horrific. Story 24. Give their child an iPad with the volume turned all the way up, playing an obnoxious children's show, song, or game. Story 25. Have a phone conversation on speaker while speaking loudly enough that it is impossible to ignore. I like joining those conversations and start responding to the person on the other end. Inevitably, they get upset and tell me to mind my own business. I am minding my own business. You are making your conversation everybody's business. Story 26. Be loud. I do not care if it is justified or not. If you are loud in a waiting room, you are being inconsiderate. I do not care if it is on a phone, talking with the person next to you, playing on a device, or whatever. Waiting rooms are public spaces that people have to be in, and being loud in them is prioritizing yourself over everyone else. Please be considerate. Story 27. A mother was eating McDonald's breakfast in a preoperative waiting room while her little boy hovered over her, begging for a bite and repeatedly saying he was hungry. He said the food smelled so good and was making him even hungrier. She kept cramming it into her mouth while telling him he couldn't have any. It wasn't just that she was eating. It was her too bad for you but good for me. No sense in me being hungry just because you have to be attitude toward her child, who was about to have surgery. She openly relished every bite while he whimpered, and she dismissed him with, "Sorry about your luck. This is good." The room was full of other parents and children who were also hungry. This made all the other children who couldn't eat even hungrier. The separate surgical waiting room had coffee and snacks available for families once their children were in surgery. A cafeteria was nearby, and there was usually someone who volunteered to be a food runner for parents who did not want to leave. But she could not wait and feasted while her child was anxious and starving. My son had many surgeries growing up, and I never saw any other parent behave that way. Children's surgeries were usually scheduled in the mornings. Story 28. While I was waiting for my doctor appointment the other day, an older lady pulled a large bottle of lotion out of her handbag, applied a generous amount on her hands, and proceeded to rub that lotion all over her hands for 10 minutes. I had to suppress my urge to vomit. It was very unpleasant. Story 29. Complain repeatedly that the wait is too long after waiting 5 minutes. Complaining will not make it go faster. Story 30. I have one for this. I'm not the best at personal storytelling, but I'm going to try. I was in the waiting room of a sports rehabilitation clinic, waiting to be called back for my physical therapy appointment. Sitting next to me was a man, maybe in his 40s, and what I assumed was his teenage daughter. Totally normal situation so far. A few minutes went by, and an elderly woman walked in and headed to the front desk. It quickly became clear there was a language barrier and she spoke only Spanish. No problem, because soon what I assumed was her daughter came in shortly after and started translating. Easy. Handled. For some reason, this upset the man sitting next to me. He leaned over in a smug, semi-hushed tone and said, "Go back to your own country, am I right?" I was caught completely off guard. I had never had someone just offer casual racism and expect me to agree. So I looked at him and said, no, you're not right." This apparently hit a nerve, because he got louder and snapped, "Oh, you're a Democrat." Now I was angry, so I fired back, "No, I'm just not a racist." He started going off, yelling about how he was actually 1/8 Mexican or some nonsense. He said he wasn't racist, he just thought those people should learn English, and started ranting about jobs, healthcare, and all the usual garbage. All the while, his daughter looked absolutely mortified, as she should, because her dad was behaving terribly. Eventually, they were called back for her appointment, and I went straight to the front desk to let the receptionist know what had just happened, why it got loud, and what he said. I don't know what happened after that, since I got called in not long after, but the receptionist assured me he wouldn't be coming back. So, if you want to upset me in a waiting room, try leaning over to me with some racist nonsense expecting agreement, then double down by calling me a Democrat when I don't support your behavior, and proceed to loudly racially bully an elderly woman just trying to get medical care. Story 31. This happened yesterday while I waited for an eye specialist appointment. A man started to loudly play a game on his phone in the waiting room with screaming sound effects and explicit language. Within about 3 minutes, the rest of us had asked him to please turn it down. He ignored everyone and turned it up. Then we all made faces about him. By the time I was seen, I was in tears, laughing at him and us. Story 32. Play anything loudly on a phone. A little while ago, I was waiting in the doctor's office for my appointment, and there was a grown man playing a gambling game on his phone. I lasted less than 60 seconds before telling him it was not the time or place for that noise. He was shocked. I was very proud of myself. I felt like I could have really hurt him. Story 33. Act like it is a first come, first served situation when appointments are required. There is a woman I see regularly at my doctor's office who arrives extremely early for her scheduled appointments. She then becomes progressively angrier as people with appointments before hers are taken back before she is, regardless of which doctor they are seeing. I have seen her cause such a disturbance that one of the office managers told her she will need to leave and reschedule for another time because she is completely out of control. Story 34. This thread is hilarious. If there is a waiting room in hell, I guess we have just described it completely. Story 35. Have their ringtone so loud that everyone jumps, talk on their phone using the speaker, speak so loudly to whomever they are with that you cannot hear yourself think, and let their child run around everywhere. Story 36. I was stuck waiting for urgent care for more than 6 hours once. Towards the end, an entire family showed up, including a grandmother, and the toddler would not stop screaming and being loud in general. You do not need 5 or more people there for one person, especially when there are not enough seats for everyone who is actually waiting to be seen. I was sitting on the floor for at least 2 hours after I arrived. Story 37. A parent, focused on their phone, with their child asking repeatedly, "Mom or Dad, look at me, look." Your child wants your attention. This is a perfect opportunity to interact, read together, play a game, or talk. Story 38. Answer to the wrong name being called. I asked for Carl. If your name is not Carl, I'm not asking for you. Story 39. Sneeze directly into your hand. Do not cover your cough. Wipe your nose with your hand. Talk on a phone call on speaker or watch reels or TikTok videos at full volume. Let your kids run amok like uncivilized goblins, expecting others to watch them for you. Being self-absorbed or unhygienic without recognizing that it is a shared, public space is inconsiderate. Story 40. Sit there while their unruly child plays games with loud, unpleasant sounds and ignores your request for silence. Story 41. Sitting right next to me when there are plenty of other seats, playing loud music from their social media, talking loudly on their phone with the speaker on, or coughing without covering their mouth. All of these upset me greatly every time. Story 42. Playing anything on their phone, I can hear it. They need earbuds or headphones. That is the only appropriate way. Story 43. People who wear a mask under their nose or under their chin. If you are in a medical office, it is either because you are sick, your family member is sick, or you are caring for someone who has a chronic medical issue that would be made much worse if they caught whatever you have. It takes very little effort to look out for people in a medical situation. Story 44. This is oddly specific, but talking about their kids' medical information to complete strangers is not appropriate. I was in a group conversation, and one of the attendees who was brand new shared her daughter's entire mental health history. That is very inappropriate. None of us knew if her daughter was okay with that because her daughter was not even present. I still regret not saying something. Just because you are not under the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act rules does not mean you should talk about other people's medical history, especially with perfect strangers. Story 45. Playing reels or TikToks out loud at a ridiculous volume without headphones is specifically infuriating because the audio frequently changes to something new and unexpected. Older adults often do this. Story 46. I was once in a crowded waiting room, and the person next to me pulled out a nail clipper and proceeded to clip his nails. Story 47. Eating crisps. They are loud and usually smell. When I was waiting to be induced with my second child, there was a man in the waiting room who ate 4 packets of cheese and onion walkers in a row. Scrunching, crunching, and stinky. I have never been so full of rage in my life. Story 48. Bringing their whole family. Kids, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and others. No, you do not need 20 people with you. Story 49. I always read when I am in a waiting room. I am quiet. Anyone who makes noise, I want to punch. I am not talking about quietly talking to one another. I mean all the people who listen to videos on their phones. This is not really what the original poster asks, but I also cannot stand the videos playing in doctors' waiting rooms. Story 50. Complain that they arrived before someone else or have been waiting longer in the emergency department. Triage is constant. This is not first come, first served. Someone may be more emergent and needs to be seen first. There is a continuous shuffling of patients on the board behind the scenes. Story 51. Play videos on their phone or tablet without headphones. I hate it when parents let children do this. It absolutely blows my mind when adults do this. Story 52. An older woman waiting for a colonoscopy was told she could not have the procedure done because she did not have someone to escort her home. She planned to call a taxi. The receptionist told her that the rules were firm and that she had been informed when she booked the procedure that she had to have someone drive her home, make sure she was okay, and ensure she got into the house safely. The older woman then proceeded to start yelling and arguing. When she still did not get her way, she loudly complained that she was being discriminated against because of her race. From all appearances, the woman was white. I could not stop my laugh but felt sorry for the receptionist. She immediately and calmly asked the patient to confirm she felt discriminated against because of her race. The older woman quieted down a little but still said yes. The receptionist asked her to sit down while she went and got a supervisor to address her complaints. That was a clever move as they could take her out of the waiting room and into the supervisor's office where there was no audience for her loud complaints. Story 53. Talking loudly over the phone, whistling, ignoring their children, and trying to chat. I know people sometimes get nervous at the doctor's office. Some people are lonely and just trying to chat. That is okay. Recently, I was on my phone looking at my baby recital photos when an older man started commenting on how everybody is on their phones today. Well, everybody was. I ignored it, but he singled me out and started lecturing about how I am losing touch with the real world, and that my generation, I am 40, is broken and deficient. I politely responded that I have no problem with my connections. Thank you. He replied that I obviously do if I am on my phone instead of talking with people in the waiting room, and that it is probably the same at home where I do not give my family any attention just being on my phone. At that point, I calmly told him that the fact I do not want to speak with him specifically does not mean I have a problem forming connections with people. I just do not want to establish a connection with him. Nobody in the waiting room felt compelled to talk to him after his rant. People around me instantly buried themselves in their phones or looked at the ceiling or their nails. Perhaps it is not so much an issue for my generation. There were people there ranging from 16 to 80, but rather a matter of congeniality and kindness. Next time, if he wants to engage in friendly conversation, he should not start by criticizing everybody nearby out loud. He was with his wife, I assume, who sighed, rolled her eyes, and sent me an apologetic look. I wondered what her life must be like with that man. And if you think I am the problem, do not bother telling me. I already know. Story 54. Do not wear heavy perfume or cologne when you are in a room with strangers for an extended period. Story 55. Have their phone playing a video. Headphones or earbuds should be used, especially if there is already a television on in the waiting room. Story 56. In an office where I worked, there were 2 cubicles behind me, one immediately behind and one across a narrow aisle. The woman they supported was in an office 10 feet away. They held their team meetings on speakerphone. The head of the team had a voice you could hear down the hall and around the corner. Their meetings were in surround sound and, obvious to everyone but them, extremely annoying. Story 57. Snorting and coughing phlegm in the back of the throat repeatedly. Blow your nose or go to the restroom and deal with whatever is trying to claw its way out of your sinuses. Story 58. 1. Scratch their head a lot and squirm in their seat, especially if they take the seat next to you in a nearly empty waiting room. 2. Pass gas. Story 59. Passing gas. There is absolutely no reason that if you need to pass gas when you are in a waiting room, you cannot get up and go outside or to the bathroom. Making people suffer through smelling and essentially tasting your unpleasant fumes will make me despise you. Story 60. Right now, there is a very stinky and loud man in the waiting room. He has taken 3 phone calls and is yelling obnoxiously on the calls. His ringtone sounds like music from 2010. Story 61. Loud phone notification. Loud phone notification. Loud phone notification. Hey guys, today we are going to show you loud phone notification. Loud phone notification. We are going to show you loud phone notification. Loud phone notification. Story 62. Attempt a conversation with me. Please be quiet. I do not want to talk to you while I am waiting. Story 63. Have a loud phone conversation with their speakerphone turned on or play games on their phone with the sound or music turned on. That irritates me greatly. Story 64. Let their children be disruptive. I don't mind normal kid noise, but running and screaming is beyond acceptable. Story 65. Clip their toenails. I work in eye care and cannot tell you how many times a patient has been clipping their toenails in the waiting room. I used to have a coworker who was triggered by the noise of the clippers the way some people react to nails on a chalkboard. I honestly was not aware it was something people did in waiting rooms until I met her, and now I cannot unsee it. Story 66. A woman brought her elderly mother in a wheelchair and placed her across the room instead of next to her. Sweet as pie to everyone else, she continually snapped at her mother for any question or statement she made. The mother was never rude or overbearing. The woman did not make herself look good. Story 67. People complain about the waiting time, only to leave because it is taking too long. I cannot believe people go to the hospital when they can actually afford not to go. When I go to the hospital, I need to be there. I do not care if a fire breaks out and I have been there for 2 days. I will keep my appointment and receive treatment. Story 68. Loud ringtone or speaker volume while scrolling through social media is followed by even louder talking on the phone. Story 69. We had my wife's mother at Mayo Clinic, and a lady started playing videos with audio on her phone. I was ready to accept the rude behavior because it is so common, but I was pleasantly surprised when the person at the desk immediately asked her to silence her phone. Very impressed. Story 70. Fiddle around on their phone while their child runs around unattended. It is a waiting room, not a playground. Story 71. Wear a Make America Great Again hat. Have a loud conversation on speakerphone, watch something without headphones, take their shoes off, smell bad, be near me. Story 72. Listening to a racist rant at full volume while wearing a Make America Great Again hat. To be clear, this particular man was also scooter-bound and receiving free healthcare from the government. Story 73. Blow their nose on their sleeve, eat with their mouth open, proclaim themselves king of the land of waiting, start singing Agadoo, and then immediately try to force everyone to do the conga. Story 74. I had a man loudly take a speakerphone call. When he was leaving, he tried to hand out flyers for his business to everyone. I said no thanks and waved him off. He tossed a flyer into my lap anyway. Story 75. This actually happened. A couple sitting in the waiting room sharing a tub of cut-up apples, chewing with their mouths open the whole time. Story 76. If you want to anger an emergency room triage nurse, call 911 from the emergency room waiting room to complain about the wait. Story 77. One that I have done myself kind of accidentally. I used to have a fart sound as my text alert on an old phone back in the day. I was called up to reception, and as I passed right by a gentleman already in pain at a doctor's office, someone texted me. Unless I am on my phone, I keep it in my back pocket, about face height if you are sitting down. I am sure he forgot all about his medical issue for a second because he had the purest look of hate on his face. He probably still thinks about me. Story 78. spread out as if camping for a month, especially when their bags occupy 3 extra chairs, leaving no space for others to sit. Story 79. I have lost count of how many times I have been in a medical office waiting room with an older person watching a video on their phone or having a conversation with the speaker on and the volume all the way up. One man had to be asked 3 times to turn it down before he would, and even then it was still way too loud. I just do not understand it. Story 80. When people leave the little clicking sounds on their keyboard while texting, stop that. It is not okay. Story 81. Watching me. I was waiting to go into urgent care one time, and this old man just sat there and watched me the whole time. When I got up to go in, he watched me all the way to the door. Story 82. Wear a swastika. I am Jewish. That person wants me dead for that reason and no other. How can I not hate that? Story 83. Just yesterday in the doctor's waiting room, an older lady in her late 60s came in wearing incredibly excessive 1980s style makeup and sequin sneakers. She sat down and proceeded to play videos on her phone at full volume. I was too fascinated by the visual to hate it, but I wanted to throw that phone down the elevator shaft. Story 84. Talking on speakerphone or listening to videos without headphones, going to the bathroom or outside, anywhere away from me. Story 85. Vape, have a loud phone conversation, play music or games on their phone with sound on and no headphones, and wear an excessive amount of perfume or cologne. Story 86. Talk on their phone. Text if you need to communicate or step outside to speak. Similarly, avoid watching videos without headphones. Not everyone wants to hear what your favorite influencer has to say. Story 87. I am too polite to say something like, "Stop talking to me." But I am sorry, I really do not want to talk to random people. I am already upset that I have to sit and wait for whatever. I usually just wear earbuds without actually listening to anything, but that is not always an option or effective, especially when I choose a seat farthest from anyone else already there. If you have a question, that is fine, but is the entire backstory of your life leading to this moment really necessary? Story 88. Listening to anything on speakerphone. I had to get breaks, and this person was playing a game with the sound at full volume. Story 89. Listening to their phone without earbuds. I actually had someone do this in a surgery recovery ward once, and it was all completely unhinged conspiracy stuff. Not even the usual, but like, mermaids are taking over the seas, here is the proof. And the government is hiding zombies from us. And mushrooms are reading our thoughts and preparing the rebellion. Stuff that would make even pretty hardcore conspiracy enthusiasts pause. It went on for over an hour, and if anyone in that ward had the ability to move that phone, it surely would have gone out a window. Story 90. I was in a waiting room today with a fractured ankle, so I was not in the best spirits. Please take this with a grain of salt. Talking loudly on the phone and laughing while people are in pain. Eating a bag of chips and crunching loudly. Story 91. Tell me that they hope there is no more transgender issues by the time my toddlers, whom I am taking to see the doctor for a checkup, are old enough to start school. I will never forget that awful old woman. Story 92. Watch videos, listen to music, or talk on your phone with clear sound. I will dislike you for not using earbuds. Story 93. Not wearing a mask when you are obviously experiencing contagious symptoms, coughing or sneezing without covering your face. Touching things with unclean hands, especially in the cancer clinic, is extremely irritating. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.